Hello and good morning from John Collects Stamps. Welcome to episode 2, my second video. And today is Sunday the 11th of December. It's currently Sunday morning here in the UK and it's quite cold. It's 1 degree Celsius outside. It was a little bit colder this morning when I got up. I was up at 5:30 AM. I had to work for a few hours this morning. I work in IT. I was doing some maintenance work. So I had about 4 hours of work. So I work from home. So yeah, a couple of cups of coffee down me to keep me warm and wake me up this morning. But I thought today I would share a video with you highlighting what I collect stamp wise and how I collect it and how I present it. So predominantly I collect Great Britain stamps from Queen Victoria to present day. So that covers all monarchs from Queen Victoria through Edward VII, George V, Edward VIII very briefly, George VI and Queen Elizabeth II. As at this moment in time, we have no issues of stamps for our current monarch, King Charles III, who succeeded his mother, Queen Elizabeth, who sadly passed away in September of this year, 2022. So, to start, I'll just show you how I collect and what I collect. So, I predominantly use stock books. I think they're the best solution for me. I like the way I can just present things how I like, and I've just realised I picked the wrong stock book up. I've got that many of them. There we go, that's the one I was after. So I'm not going to go too deep into what I've got in these albums. I'm just going to give you a brief overview. But yeah, as you can see here, these are my Victorian British stamps. These are from 1840 onwards. I have 2 penny blacks, one of which you will have seen in episode 1 last week, which is this lovely example here. This is the other one I own, which isn't quite as nice as the one that I won in the Museum of Philately competition, but it's a penny black from 1840 and it's a piece of history, so what's not to love? I've got some penny reds, imperforates, penny stars, penny red with the 4 control letters and the plate numbers. I'll come back to that later. Got a nice selection of twopenny blues. These were issued shortly after the penny black. I think the same week the first ones came out. They were imperforate, the first couple of plates, and they were reissued again featuring a white line under the word postage and above the rate at the bottom where it says 2p. Now I don't have the imperforate that doesn't have the white line, which was the first issue, so that's something that's on my radar that I am looking out for. Probably going to be one of my next purchases. But I have various plate numbers there. A lot of the information I got regarding the plate numbers I got from Pete West at OurDadsStamps. If you haven't already, go and check his channel out. It's well worth it if you're into collecting British stamps, especially some of the older stuff like Victorian era. He really does go into detail and give you some great pointers and advice on what to look at and what to collect. But yeah, just a brief smattering of the Queen Victoria era. I've got the Jubilee set here, which I think are a beautiful set of stamps, especially like this 9p bicolour stamp here. I've got 2 copies of that one. But let me get my black card again to put that on. And see if we can bring that into focus. These, I think these bicolour stamps are absolutely beautiful. Just the whole design process around these Victorian stamps I think is really nice. We move on then to her son Edward VII, and this set here are the Jubilee stamps yet again, but just using Edward VII's head instead of that of his mother, Queen Victoria. And a brief foray into George V. Probably the saddest page in British stamp collecting is the collection of Edward VIII. You know, Edward VIII was only on the throne for 10 months in 1936 before he abdicated, and these are the only 4 postage stamps that were issued featuring Edward VIII, before his brother Albert, who took the regnal name of George VI, took the throne in his place. So yeah, this is obviously that era, George VI, and that's pretty much the end of that first album. So that little volume there contains everything from could contain everything from 1840 to 1952 in its simplest form, without any variations and different watermarks and different colour shades, etc. But if you just wanted one stamp of every design, you'd fit them all in there. But that's when things change, because this is Queen Elizabeth II, but this is only from 1952 to 1990, the end of 94. So this is only 42 years worth of stamps, and that is over 100 years worth. So it just goes to show you how the volume increased in what was being output by the Royal Mail. But yeah, this is Queen Elizabeth, and start off with the Wildings, moves on to commemoratives, pre-decimal, different issues. You'll notice there's 2 issues of some of these sets. This is when the post office was trialling using phosphor bands to help sort mail automatically. So one of these sets will be on ordinary paper, the other will be with the phosphor bands that allowed for the automation to pick those stamps up and read the postal, because it knew what rates had the phosphor bands on, it could sort the mail. Again, some more examples over here. Then we move back to single issue sets towards the end of the 60s, so these are still pre-decimal. That's the investiture of Prince Charles when he became the Prince of Wales in 1969. Then we move on to 1971 and the decimal era. And yeah, so I'm not going to go into too much detail in here, but these are all fairly easy to get hold of. I collect, like I say, I collect everything, but my Queen Elizabeth collection of late has probably slipped. I probably last 4 or 5 years haven't got a great deal of the stamps that have been issued, purely because of the volume. There are so many sets come out every year now. You know, we're talking 10, 12 sets of commemoratives, and because I'm concentrating my collection on older eras, I tend to focus more on like my George V and Edward VII and Queen Victoria eras, because I know that I'll still be able to get hold of the Queen Elizabeth stuff because there is so much of it produced. So I will fill the gaps eventually, but yeah, there's just so many different sets. As you can see here, this is through the 70s and 80s. And I've got another 3 albums like this, another 3 stock books. just one there of interest. That's the 150th anniversary sheet for the penny black, and there was a set of stamps issued on a Machin design with not just Queen Elizabeth but also Queen Victoria's head in profile next to her, which I think is a really good set, especially since they've produced the 20p one there in black. But there was a set of, I think, 5 different values and colours, which I do have elsewhere. So yeah, this is how I lay my collection out. Oh, just one set of interest there. This is the Channel Tunnel opening in 1994, and this was a set that was issued in both Britain and in France. So you can get this. This is the British set, obviously, but you can get this issued by the French post office, where it has the values in, I think it was francs, I think it was pre-Euro days in the 90s, and obviously the wording on the stamps will be in French. So that's something I'm going to pick up, because I think that's quite cool that there's a dual issue. So yeah, that's pretty much how I lay out my stock books, apart from when I start to get specialised. And what do I mean by that? Well, if I bring this next one over, you may have noticed in that Queen Elizabeth album there, we didn't see any Machin stamps. That's because they get their own album, their own stock book, because there are so many of them, and it's one of the facets of British philately that I kind of jumped into with both feet probably about 10 years ago, and seriously started collecting the Machins. When I first started collecting them as a kid, I just used to collect them in denomination values, and put like, oh, I've got a 1p, a 2p, a 3p, and so on and so forth, not realising that some were issued later, so you could have a lower denomination that was issued after a higher value, and so on and so forth. But once you get yourself a Stanley Gibbons catalogue and you look at the catalogue numbers, you realise what an absolute minefield of stamps there are in just collecting Machins. And some people, that's all they collect. And it's easy to see why once you dip your toes in. So here we go. That's the pre-decimal issues of the Machins from 1967. And this kind of then setting a mould for the next 50 or so years of what our stamps look like in Britain, apart from the denominations were obviously in decimal pence after this particular set. So we move on to the decimal years, and what I was saying about the catalogue numbers, ideally if you are collecting Machins, you need to use the Stanley Gibbons catalogues, because it gives you the catalogue numbers for all the different variations of what appears to be the same stamp. So just for example there, you can see there are 3 halfpence turquoise stamps. Now they've all got a different catalogue number, and that's because they are different. I can see from here that one's got 2 phosphor bands on it. It's got a band of phosphor on either side of it. I think that one is phosphorised paper, so it doesn't have the bands. And I'm not sure what the variation is on that one. That could be a centre band, actually, looking at it. And it is. That's got a centre. That's got a central phosphor band just running up the middle of it there. From what I can gather from what I've gleaned from US collectors, is that in the Scott catalogue that would be just identified as one catalogue number, where obviously it is actually 3 different stamps. And once you get into the research of the Machins, you do realise that they are different with the phosphor bands and the different types of paper, different printers. Some of them they have slight variations in typeface, where there might be a slightly different shape 2 or a pence sign. But yeah, I think these are an absolutely amazing stamp. Other than the penny black, I think the Machins are my favourite stamp. And just the multitude of them, the colours. They're a design classic for sure. You know, they're quite iconic. You could probably show it to somebody anywhere in the world and they would say, oh, yeah, that's the stamp from Great Britain, isn't it? And so many millions, well, probably billions of them have been printed over the 50 odd years. You know, and they're still in use today. You know, the current set of definitives we have in Britain are the new data matrix Machins that have the barcode on. As of yet, we are to get some stamps with King Charles III on. There's been no issues from the post office at this time, so everything we've got still has Queen Elizabeth on, including the definitives. So yeah, as you can see here, there are just so many. There's the set for the 150th anniversary of the penny black with the profile of Queen Victoria in the background. I think that's a lovely set. Again, slight variations with the stamps, different printers, etc. No value indicated stamps there with first and second class, which is the equivalent of the forever stamps in the US. High values, more high values, and just as a matter of interest, these are Machins with the elliptical perforations. Now, I'll show you what I mean. I'll take one of these out and give you a closer look. Get my tweezers in. If you can see there, down towards the bottom on both sides of the stamp, there are these larger elliptical perforations, one on each side. Now, these were introduced as a security feature to help prevent counterfeit stamps being produced. How effective that was, I don't know, but all Machins from that moment on had that elliptical perforation all the way through to the regional variations. I'm not going to go too in depth with this because I want to do a full in-depth video on the history of the Machins and their widespread use. Now, that's that album, so that's got a lot of Machins in it. Now, one thing I'll briefly show you is the... In fact, let me just address how I present these albums. This is an album containing the Welsh regional stamps of Great Britain. So these are using the Wilding portrait from the 1950s, and these are the pre-decimal issues, obviously. But the way I lay these albums out is I print out all the catalogue numbers. I put them in a spreadsheet, I put them into Excel, and then I print that out, and I just cut them up and put them on the pages, and it helps me identify the catalogue numbers that I need for my collection. It's just my way of doing it, and I think it looks really nice when they're on the page, because it does give you the, you know, the corresponding catalogue number for your particular stamps. Now, again, just a brief look at these. These are the regional Machins for Wales. So they've got the Queen's Head, which is slightly smaller than on the standard ones, and in the top left hand side you've got the Welsh Dragon. And following the same course that the standard stamps took, these also went with the elliptical perforations in 1993, and then adopted a regional design from 2002 onwards. And you get the same let me open this one up. This is from Northern Ireland. So again, Northern Ireland featuring the red-handed of Ulster and a crown as the emblem. And finally, last but not least, you also get the Scottish regional variations with the lion rampant in the top left corner. So as you can see, there are countless variations on the Machins, and I'm going to, like I say, I'm going to do a video on those to detail that a little bit more. And I've already done that one, so I've done that one. And yep, finally I'll just show you this album briefly. This is my George V Specialist collection. Now, as you can see on here, there are several stamps that have looked like they've got the same design and in the same colours. So these are the Downy Head, as it's known, this 3/4 profile George V. These were the first definitives from 1912. There was only ever two values issued, the halfpenny and the 1 penny. If you went off the standard concise Stanley Gibbons catalogue, I think it only tells you that there's two stamps, a green one and a red one. If you look at the if you look in the specialised catalogue, it tells you that, oh no, there are many variations, different colour shades, different watermarks, different printers. So yeah, it's a whole array of collecting, taking that extra step, but you do need the specialised collection catalogue for that. And that continues for the rest of the definitives in, you know, all these variations of the same design and value. So the green halfpenny there and the red 1 pennies, then you got the brown 1.5 pence, and so on and so forth. Like the 2 penny halfpenny there, the lilacs, you know, there's 4 of those there. So it's really interesting, but it's really good to have the the specialised catalogue to, you know, enable you to collect things at that level. One other thing I will show you in here is the other thing that I collect, which is these penny reds, Stanley Gibbons SG43 and SG44. These are the penny reds with the 4 control letters, 1 in each corner, and the ones that have the plate number in the lattice work on the left and right of the stamp. So there are many of these, plate 71 through to 225, with a couple of gaps. There's no plate 75, there's no plate 126 and 128, I think. There is a plate 77, and you might be laughing to yourself there thinking, why has he left a spot for the 77? because he's never going to get it. And you're probably right. The plate 77 penny red plate is the holy grail of the penny red stamps. There are only a few known to exist. Several stamps from a sheet somehow got out in the wild, but after that the plate was destroyed and all the stamps were recalled and destroyed. But there are some out there. I believe there's one in the Royal Collection, there's one in the British Library collection. So, ever the optimist, I've left a placeholder for plate 77, but I don't think that'll be crossing my path at any point. And even if it did, I wouldn't have the money to purchase it, so it's not really a problem. But I think these are a beautiful set of stamps. You know, it's the same design as the penny black, the same profile of Queen Victoria, but yeah, I think they're just brilliant. All the different slight variations of red, with all the different interesting cancellation marks. So yeah, as you can see, there's plates all the way through here to $225. I've got another nice run there. These are fairly cheap to pick up. You can pick up these on eBay for, you know, maybe £1 each, a couple of pound each. You know, a little bit more for more rare plate numbers, but I've not spent a lot of money on this, and even getting them direct from a dealer. I recently bought some from BB Stamps here in the UK, and they were really reasonable for a very fine used set. I think they were like £1, between £1 and £2 for the certain plate numbers. So not an expensive collection, and you know, you put things into perspective. These stamps are over 140 years old, so it is, you know, they are nice little pieces of history, and it's nice to have things in your collection. So I'm going to cover a couple of topics in further detail in other videos. One, like I say, I'm going to do a deep dive on the Machins. I'm going to do a deep dive on certain stamps from certain eras. One thing I will suggest is, if you're collecting British stamps, get yourself a copy of this. This is the Commonwealth and British Empire, Stanley Gibbons specialised catalogue. This really does give you everything you need to know. You know, it gives you information on watermarks, it gives you the full listing of catalogue numbers for those variations. Just for example, that's the penny red plates there. And those George V stamps I was talking about. Let me just find that page. So yeah, there's the downy heads, and as you can see within the catalogue, the two stamps in the concise, we've now got all these additional numbers here, these catalogue numbers. And then for the side profile, rather than maybe 10, 11 stamps, we've now got a full, probably 40 or so stamps in that particular set of catalogue numbers. So yeah, this is a really invaluable guide if you're collecting British stamps. And it also has the benefit of having all the Commonwealth countries in up until, you know, this is up till 1970. Now, this is a 2013 copy, so this is what, 9 years old. So the catalogue values in here will be wrong, but I don't collect stamps for the monetary value. I collect it for the fun and the excitement of the hobby. So I'm not bothered about the catalogue values. I take most of them with a pinch of salt anyway. But this is an expensive book. If you buy this brand new, you're talking £79 UK. So I'm guessing the same thing would cost you roughly $100 in the US. I picked this up on eBay for £10. The fact that it only goes up to 1970 shouldn't really impact. It's not like it's missing any new issues. There may be several omissions, maybe things they've discovered since this particular edition was printed, but I think as a trade-off, you know, you can pay £10 for a catalogue like this, and it'll do you for the vast majority of your collection if it's British or Commonwealth related. And you know, I don't have that much of a budget for my hobby. You know, I spend maybe between £50 and £100 a month. So if I was buying this brand new at £80, that's a big chunk of my stamp budget for the month. So I'd rather spend £10 this on this second hand, and then use the rest of the money to buy some more stamps for my collection. So anyway, that's enough of me waffling on. I hope you've enjoyed this brief little dabble into what I've got, how I collect it, and if you like the video, please give me a like, give me a thumbs up, and if you're not already, if you could subscribe to the channel. There will be some more content coming out probably next weekend. Like I say, I'm probably going to start that with a deep dive onto the Machin stamps, delving into the history of that and showing a few more examples. So anyway, I'll leave you to the rest of your Sunday, and until next time, happy stamping and take care. Goodbye.